Hello again, Salem. This is William Legault from Salem Digest, and once again, I'm coming to you from the studios at Salem Access Television on Derby Street. We're continuing our candidate interviews. We've moved on from the preliminary election, and now we're dealing with the general election candidates. The general election is on the 2nd of November. So we're going to start off this series of interviews with Alice Merkl, who is running for Councilor at Large. Thanks for coming in, Alice.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing these interviews. It's a great service to keep our voters engaged and informed. I really appreciate you doing this, and I'm really excited to be running again.
All righty, very nice. We're going to jump right into the questions. We're not going to mess around here. So you've run once before.
Yes.
Correct, just the one time. And you seem like you really enjoyed running the last time. You're enjoying it this time, Alice. But let's get real here. What's your motivation? Why are you doing this?
I'm doing it because what we depend on the most, what we rely on and affects our quality of life, happens at the local level of government. I have the unique experience through my volunteer work of talking with and engaging with literally hundreds of our Salem residents every week. And I hear all about their ideas for Salem, their concerns, their challenges, what they love, and that really keeps me connected to our communities. And I feel it's a natural next step for me to take those connections to the City Council.
Fair enough. Volunteer work. What kind of volunteer work do you do, Alice?
Oh, well, with all the passion there is in Salem to get involved, one thing leads to another. So it's a pretty long list. I volunteer for food insecurity efforts with our Salem Pantry and the Mac Park Food Farm. I'm a volunteer for our Community Life Center events. And also, I volunteer for these monthly cleanups that we have with Keep Salem Beautiful, and a teenager in Salem, Ethan Henshaw, started them. So that was really inspiring to get involved with. Those happen every month. I'm on the board of directors for the Women's Friends Society, which has a long history in Salem of providing affordable transitional housing for women. So, and then there's a lot of support for small business that I enjoy being involved in, volunteering for Salem Main Streets and their collaborative efforts with Creative Collective to do things that enhance our down and support our small business community, even if it comes down to hanging twinkling lights downtown or volunteering for, Salem So Sweet and the art festival. So I like to stay engaged.
Well, somebody has to hang those twinkling lights
Yes.
downtown. So, okay, we're going to get to the nitty-gritty now. We're going right into the real questions. That was the polite question, right? Development, it's a buzzword. It's guaranteed to provoke discussion, even argument, especially in Salem these days. Is it true that Salem's ancient infrastructure is collapsing because we are developing or overdeveloping, or are we keeping pace with the infrastructure?
Yes, I certainly hear a lot about development while door knocking, and it not only affects our infrastructure, but also our environment and our quality of life here in Salem. So my approach isn't stop overdevelopment. That's too much of a one-size-fits-all approach to the very complex, very vast factors involved in each proposal. I think they need to be looked at individually. And also, we have a housing crisis, and we need solutions, not barriers. So my approach is that we need thoughtful, really thought out, careful development that has the voice of the community involved, especially the community that's most effective. Its impact on environment and, as you said, infrastructure. And we also need to look at many factors that affect our infrastructure, like climate change. And also, development can be an opportunity to address infrastructure. Every proposal has a procedure to go through, a permitting process that's extensive. They take a deep dive into the effect of that proposal, what it will have on our infrastructure. And that can result in them addressing, water and sewage or sidewalks or more trees. So there's an opportunity there to have the developer do that instead of the city. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, I just want to let's go back a little and clarify, because at one point you talked about overdevelopment, and then you referred to smart development. Do you feel that Salem right now is being overdeveloped, or that maybe the development is not smart development?
That's a good question. I really, like I said, don't look at it as overdevelopment. It's really if that development is beneficial to our community. So I'm for any development that addresses empty properties and anything that has a strong number for affordability. If they factor in sustainability, then I do not consider that overdevelopment. That's exactly what I want to see.
All right, so you touched on housing just a little bit, so let's follow up on housing, as we've done with just about every candidate in here. Big discussion on housing, and it's a multifaceted discussion. There's issues with diversity, there's issues with cost, there's issues with condo conversions, but there's also issues with senior housing. So as an at-large councilor, that's going to be something you have to look at. So let's take the Lee Fort Terrace proposal. Got shot down big time. Now they're taking a look at it again. And any development down there with that space at Lee Fort Terrace will probably affect whatever happens at Pioneer Terrace up on Palmer's Cove and some of the smaller satellite Salem Housing Authority areas. What would you like to see at Lee Fort Terrace specifically to replace the units that are there now? Or would you just rather upgrade them as they are?
Yes, they go back to the 1950s. They haven't been upgraded. It's for the most part not ADA compliant, and there's no coastal resiliency. There's flooding issues there. So I do support them being rebuilt. And I also think there's some wasted space there. I don't think there's enough access roads for hundreds and hundreds of units to go in there. That's not what I want to see. But I do think there's room for improvement and some inclusionary housing there. I have a friend that lives there, so I know the property well. And most importantly, the voices of the people that live there need to be heard. Whatever happens there, they need to be part of the process. They need to be engaged. I believe there's some city-owned land that's also in that realm of property there. So if it's at all possible, and I don't know if they could build on the property so people could just go from one home to the other, but that may not be possible. If they have to move somewhere, they need, of course, the first option to get back into a home there. And they, like I said, their voice needs to be heard. They need to know what's happening. That has to be frightening. I know, like I said, I know people that live there, and the idea of it is frightening. So they definitely need to be part of the conversation, and they need to be the priority through the process.
What exactly do you see that project looking like? Are you looking, how big do you think is too big? What's the right size? How many floors, how many units?
I'd have to take a look at different ideas that may be in different proposals, but it definitely, I think it can go up, and I think it has to go up. For coastal resiliency, you don't want any mechanics or residences on the first floor, so it has to go up somewhat. That's a good question if I thought about it. I like to see things in the scope of the surrounding areas. So my thinking is maybe 3 to 4, between 3 and 5 stories. But like I said, that depends on the overall number because there are, traffic concerns, what can get in and out of that neighborhood. So how many different buildings there might be. So I think a lot of thought has to go in that. But like I said, more importantly is the opinion of the neighborhood and the community there and the residents.
Fair enough. We're going to stick with development for now, and also with the infrastructure. You look around town. You live downtown.
Yes.
You see the majority of the development has taken place in the downtown and the B5 over the last few years.
Yes.
But it also is taking place in other parts of the city. Do you think that the development is moving too fast? Should we slow it down?
I don't think in lines of a timeline. I think if that development is beneficial. I don't like empty buildings that sit. I like something done with them. So if that is moving along, that's not too fast for me. I like and support the work. A good example is the work of the North Shore CDC, how they're doing school properties into, like you mentioned, senior housing. In this situation with that. So I know that they're building some truly affordable housing in some of the school properties and addressing any empty buildings that aren't being utilized. Then I'm all for that. I'm not concerned with the pace of that.
Well, you used the term truly affordable housing.
Yes.
What is, I'm not going to pressure you to define that, but is affordable housing as currently defined and present everywhere, is that really affordable for people that need it?
Very often it's not. What you want to look at is the numbers. So sometimes 80% of what they call the area median income is considered affordable, and it's not affordable. You want to hit numbers 60% AMI or lower.
Or lower.
Or lower.
Okay.
Yes, which sometimes, the North Shore CDC, Harbor Lights does affordable housing, so it can be done.
We look at the different developments, and you're talking about beneficial to the city. I don't want to pick on the Bricks development, but it's the most recent one where they have some units going out to auction. Now, they've had $1 million condominium sold in that complex. And if my information is right, the affordable condo was going in the mid-200s. I believe.
Yeah, there's a different price. I think there's, one bed and 2 bedrooms.
Is that truly an affordable condominium? I mean, in comparison to $1 million it is, but is a $250,000 condominium really targeting the demographic we want to be targeting?
I think I welcome any step in that direction, but we need units, homes that are even more affordable than that. But I certainly welcome that. And it's a good number. It's considerably less than the other units. And that is right outside my backyard window, the Bricks. And I am happy something was done with that building. I've been living across from it empty for years.
It has been empty for quite a
Yes.
period of time. So when we talk about infrastructure, everybody thinks about everything that's under the streets. But infrastructure includes the streets themselves and the traffic that they bear. So traffic in Salem, it's an issue, long been an issue. It's becoming more of an issue. I mean, it's getting worse before it gets better, that's for sure. What do you think about the traffic measures that the city has been taking? We seem to be just trying different things to see how they work. Anything you like about these traffic measures and anything you don't like about them?
Yes, like you just said, I'm glad they're trying to come up with new ideas, new initiatives. I support that. And you can do studies and try to look at how something will work. And sometimes you don't know until it's implemented. So not every plan is going to work once it's implemented, but I certainly support trying different ideas. I've ridden the Salem Skipper many times, and I think that's a great alternative for people to have less cars. So we have a ride share that's in the works, and like I said, we have the Skipper. I support trying different bike lanes to try to get fewer cars downtown. But I would like to say that I always want to hear from the community that they're putting them in, how they feel about it and what they feel the effect will be. But as long as that communication is going on, I support trying that as well. Also, I think we can take a look at, in the downtown, the parking space requirements. Generally, for new construction, B5, it's 1.5 spaces required, and I think in some instances, if you're right near public transportation, one spot would help lower the cost of the units. We want lower priced units, and parking spaces raise the cost of producing a living space. And not only will 1.5 create a lower cost unit to live in, it will also bring fewer cars downtown, which results in less traffic, and also it can encourage people to shop locally. So I think a lot of ideas can be looked at, and I've gotten a lot of feedback while I've been door knocking, and I walk by, I've driven through posts in the middle of the road to narrow the road, so you have to slow down and different things. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, the speed bumps, that all these measures help. If anything, I get asked at the doors, can the city put more in? So I think their efforts are working. I think they're chipping away at the situation.
It's a hit and miss with some of these things.
Yes, it is, exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
So we're gonna stick with traffic for a minute. Again, that's all part, development brings more traffic.
Yeah.
And like I said, the roads are infrastructure. Should we be taking a more regional approach with traffic issues? Working with the neighboring communities, and not just the ones that abut us directly, but the ones that abut the abutters, so to speak. Should we actually be taking a more regional approach to traffic issues?
Yes, absolutely. Because it's all interconnected. Part of our traffic is people coming from other cities and towns or going to other cities and towns for their jobs. So we have to look at what I've heard a lot about over the years is the lack of public transportation getting to our neighboring cities and towns, like medical appointments in the Cummings Center and people commuting for their jobs. And so I think you do have to look at the picture as a whole. I think the answer lies within that, working with our neighbors. We're not an island. People are coming in and out of Salem, so yes.
So public transportation, of course, is an issue all by itself.
Yes.
Forget about the MBTA. There's not much you can do to control that. You mentioned the Salem Skipper. You look up at Cape Ann, they have a bit of a regional transportation thing. What would you think of building something like that down here? Not just a Salem Skipper, but more of a regional transportation cooperative between Peabody, Beverly, Salem, Marblehead, and Swampscott.
I think it's definitely worth looking into. I do. Yes, I think with the success of the Skipper, but it's only in Salem, they're already expanding their days to Sunday, and I believe their hours, and I think, yes, it's worth looking at enhancing that. And of course, it depends upon the conversations with our neighbors, neighboring cities and towns, but I would love to look at that.
So I threw you a little bit of a curveball by giving you question 3 before question 2.
Oh.
I don't know if you even noticed, because I didn't notice till after I asked it. But question 2, and this ties into, everything ties into development.
Yes,
zoning, always an issue, always an issue. Been an issue my whole lifetime. It's going to be an issue for somebody else's lifetime coming up. Do you consider our current zoning code adequate, or is it time to have a good look at it for a serious revision, citywide?
Yes, I think with the history of zoning and its contributions and its effect on inequities, I think all cities and towns should be looking at zoning because it has a continued impact on equity. And also, like I said, we have an affordable housing crisis, and sometimes zoning can get in the way of solutions of that. One example is when we tried to pass the ADUs, the accessory dwelling unit upgrade to the ordinance. And not only did that need a change, but it also took a very long time. It took years. So yes, I do think we need to look at zoning. I support resubmitting the inclusionary zoning proposal. I think that was a step in the right direction. And also, like I had said, taking a look at parking space requirements. So yes, I do think we can take a look at zoning and take some steps in the right direction.
That's a long process.
Yes.
So you're looking at 3 zoning discussions coming up, actually, that are already in progress. You're looking at the zoning questions along Bridge Street Neck.
Yes.
That is a true hodgepodge or jigsaw puzzle of zoning colors. You're looking at the potential rezoning down at the power plant property, the footprint property, and you're looking at potential rezoning at the Shetland property. 2 major discussions with Shetland and the power plant. But of course, the Bridge Street next zoning conversation is a big one too. Where do you come down in any of those, and what specifically do you see at the power plant and at Shetland 10 years from now?
Yes, so I've been to several of the meetings that the Shetland Park developers have held. They've held them over at Shetland Park, and I've seen some of their designs and heard their ideas. And I do think the area can use some attention. You know, when I go in there, I don't think there's sidewalks. I don't think it's pedestrian friendly once you get into Shetland Park. They've talked about part of the plans I've seen on the designs that they put up on the screens is having a raised walkway along the water, you know, that connects the point and goes down through the downtown. They've talked about, you know, redoing the school, so that's a little more, you know, student friendly from going building to building. But of course, there's concerns. It got off to a rocky start.
Most certainly did.
When they proposed I believe to the state for approval for, you know, I think it was 1,400 units, and that was that was upsetting, you know, for the Point community. That's the most affected, and so yeah, it got off to a little rocky start there. So then I think there was, rightfully so, some pushback, and I think they turned to having discussions with the community and the city. I think the most important factor is that, you know, the Point community be part of this conversation. We need to, for whatever residential goes in there, I want to push for as much affordability as possible. And like I said, it's the Point community members that their voices need to be heard. I'm glad they're at the Point Neighborhood Association meetings. And also, I don't want to see any reduction in the commercial space. We want to, you know, bring jobs to Salem and keep jobs in Salem. And from what they've said, the plans that they're making don't reduce any of that footage, and we just have to make sure that's the case. So what else can I offer about, you know, from those meetings? Also, we're a bit of a food desert, you know, here in Salem. So I like the idea of having a grocery store there, not an expensive grocery store, but, you know, one with that's affordable for people. So I would like to see that. I've heard some other, you know, good ideas of that nature. What will benefit the community? That needs to be an important part of the conversation.
Well, that complex actually once had a bit of a retail area. There were two very large department stores there. It was Almy's Warehouse, and there were J.M. Fields right there in that complex, right towards the front on the Congress Street side. And of course, you used to have a market down the street, a full food market, the North Shore Market. Orwell LaRue ran that. So you'd like to see a little more of a neighborhood feel being provided.
Yes.
For the neighborhood. Yes,
making it part of the community. And there's concern for the tenants that are there. You know, the food pantry's there.
Sure.
You know, the distribution center is there. So, yeah, we have to, there's a lot to think about, and we need the input from the community and the tenants that are there.
How about what's going on down at the power plant? What do you see down there? I mean, there was originally a proposal there that didn't go over very well. That's been reconsidered. Now there's wind farm talk. What do you see happening down there? What would you like to see happening down there? Yes,
that's another one I've been on a lot of meetings about, which I have to say I really appreciate the meetings that have been held. You know, by the city. You know, SAFE, the environmental organization, has had a lot of has been educating the community about the idea of the wind industry coming to that spot, which I've appreciated. And yes, the biggest talk right now is about bringing the wind industry to that spot. And I am fully in support of that. I think it would be great to be a part of that. They've had studies on what is the best use of that property in relation to the wind industry. And the one thing that's been talked about the most is having a marshalling station there, which is where they would assemble turbines. And so what I like about this is that area doesn't have a lot of road access,
Right.
in and out. It does not. And I wouldn't want to see anything that overwhelms the neighborhoods there with traffic and trucks. And we're a good target for this in that location is because, it's a deep port, there's no bridges there, there's nothing blocking access for that. So I think that's a really interesting use of the space. The only thing I'd want to check for the community is, in that kind of activity, a marshalling station, how late does the noise go at night? How loud would the noise be? Those things always have to be looked at. So you can't just say, when something hits me that it's a good idea. You do have to look at the details. You have to take a deep dive. It's not just, and this is also a complex process because it's not city land.
Right.
That's important to remember, and there's a lot of state and federal regulations. It's complex. But like I said, I also commend the information that the public's been given and the opportunity to attend these meetings and things are explained. And I've found it really interesting. I've learned a lot. So I like that. And then also, for other considerations, maybe an area for small vessels, to use it as it's always been used.
Recreational vessels.
Yeah, recreational vessels.
Sure. Now, you anticipated a follow-up question by talking about the noise that the marshalling yard may create and its impact on the neighbors, because
Yes.
that neighborhood's taken a beating over the last 10 years or so with the various things that have gone on. So we're going to move on now. We're going to change the subject just a little bit. Okay. You've been following city government for a while. You've been attending meetings. You attended meetings in person back in the day when that was possible. I'm sure you've been attending as many Zoom meetings as you can. Let's talk about decorum and behavior on the council for a second. I've asked every candidate this question. Do you think over the last few years that the council has communicated clearly with each other and politely with each other, civilly with each other, to good effect? Or have they kind of shot themselves in the foot by not really being able to get along?
That's an interesting question. Yes, I think overall, I like what I see during the meetings. There's discussion, public input, there's interaction that works. I think what happens, which can be human nature, there's a lot of focus. There's always more focus on discord than what's running smoothly. But that being said, there's certainly room for improvement. I personally think the approach needs to be, this is my personal approach, when there's a proposal or something that's being examined. I don't like to come from the lens of, are you for or against the project? Are you for or against the proposal? I think that draws lines in the sand. I think it gets people to stop communicating and taking sides. I like the starting point. My starting point is always, what are the potential benefits you see with this idea or proposal or plan, and what are the risks, and what do you think needs to be addressed? And so I think, yes, I think it's more about not deciding for or against, but communication. And yes, I do think that can be improved.
It also begs the question about the communication from the council to the mayor's office and from the mayor's office to the council. Do you think that communication, specifically the communication from the mayor's office to the council, is that being done the right way? Can there be improvements there too to kind of smooth relations out?
I think there can always be improvements. But I've seen the communication from the mayor's office and the city. From what I've seen, I haven't been a city councilor yet. They might be more knowledgeable. But no, I see it as clear and respectful. I haven't, from what I see, sometimes online you can see letters, from the mayor's office of the city to the council on ideas, and I always have seen that as respectful.
So you have 11 people on that council. diversity is an issue that it's a subject of discussion all the time. Pretty diverse field of candidates this year. Do you see it as necessary to have representatives from every walk of life on the council? Is that something that is going to help the city moving forward or not?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we need a balance of representation. Yes, I think currently, I mean, we have 50% renters in Salem. From what I know, I don't think we have any renters.
Not currently on the council.
No.
No.
So there's an underrepresented community right there. So absolutely, yes, I would really want to see a more inclusive city council.
Renters seem to take a beating in this town in public discussions, even in city council discussions and committee discussions. I've always been surprised when councilors who are landlords stand up and not necessarily attack or assail, but make negative comments about those that rent in the city. What can be done? This is not an easy question. There's only a few minutes left. What do you think can be done to make renting in the city more accessible, more affordable for people?
Yes.
Not necessarily those that need affordable housing by the legal definition.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That is a very, very important question. And we're not an island. A lot of it is affected by outside markets. The market in Boston, the rents are set by supply and demand, inventory and the number of people looking. So we just need to do everything we can to create affordable housing. I supported the ADUs that we had talked about. That creates naturally affordable rentals and also maybe a condo conversion ordinance. We can't, if somebody is zoned and they're allowed to make condos, then they are, but at least we can try to put some safeguards in place for renters that is not so disruptive, that it's not such an incredibly negative impact on their lives. I mean, we have people that have to continually move and look for a new place because their rent keeps going up. For someone that's, like I said, I have the opportunity of talking, to a lot of our community members. The majority of the people I talk to are renters, and it's like, I'm so afraid my child's going to have to switch schools again because I have to move again because the rent is going up again. So I think that's something that we need to continue to find solutions. I've attended a lot of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund meetings, and they are really working on the ideas to create more affordable rental units and to keep the ones that we have in place. And I'm looking forward to hopefully getting on the council, and that is something we can sink our teeth into. It's very important.
That's a big chew. That's a big chew. Boston has had conversations fairly recently about resurrecting rent control.
Yes.
I don't think that's going anywhere right now. But when you have $1 million condos being sold, that's going to drive costs up for people that live below that level.
Yes.
All right, Alice, one last question. Your top 2 priorities if you get elected on November 2nd.
Oh, there are a lot of priorities. We've listed so many.
Two.
Excuse me. I think everything starts with having a roof over your head and enough food to eat and feed your family. I think that's the starting point. And pretty much everything is interconnected from there. If you don't have those two things in place, the stress, the anxiety, it's so extremely detrimental. You can't. It's hard to focus on, your kids' schoolwork, taking some extra classes yourself to further your own career, to you don't have any, any extra funds, you can't support your small businesses the way you'd like. It has an incredibly, broad effect on everything. So I think we'll start, and so that is, so that falls under public health. Yes, I think then my answer is housing and public health.
Housing and public health. All right,
Yes.
Alice.
Yes. Good
That's
questions.
it. That's it. That's your 35 or so minutes.
Okay.
So thank you very much for being here. We wish you the best of luck in the general election. Guys, this is William Legault from Salem Digest, coming to you from the studios at SATV on Derby Street with Alice Merkl for Councilor at Large. Have a great day, Alice.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.